Ventures, and then also help lead our Americas-based institutional sales practice for our Prime business. So I'll speak a bit more about that. But basically, I'm fortunate to have a couple hats in my role at Coinbase. I've been with the firm about 2 years and change, and it's been, I would say, an exciting and high growth period for us, to say the least. Never kind of a boring day in crypto. How I got to Coinbase. So my background has been a mix of working in early stage startup land and then in venture capital for the meat of my career before I got to Coinbase. So I actually started out first at an early stage startup called Buy-Side FX. And we were building at the time trading tools for the foreign exchange market, specifically focused on the buy side. And by virtue of hanging out with a lot of other fintech nerds, I ended up kind of stumbling into, at the time, Bitcoin. And I was paid in Bitcoin to do some projects for various folks after hours, and kind of got hooked and very excited about Bitcoin. And so that was around kind of 2013, and the next really 3 years after that initial cycle of excitement around Bitcoin, crypto was kind of a dirty word. I was transitioning from startup land at that point into venture capital. And so spending a lot of time thinking about cybersecurity, enterprise software, and cryptography, and still interested in crypto at the time. But it was not something that a lot of venture firms were kind of actively focused on. So it's something that I spent more time on kind of personally, but could not convince my partnership to take super seriously from an investment standpoint. Eventually, I think things started to kind of warm up again in the next cycle, which I think really, I would say, began around the 2016 timeframe with Ethereum. And I got really interested in smart contracts at that time. I felt that kind of solidity and what was happening on the Ethereum blockchain solved a lot of the problems that some smart people who I had been working with were thinking about with kind of Bitcoin, and really started to dive back in. So I wrapped up my time in venture after about 3 years, looking at cybersecurity and digging in a bit more to the Ethereum ecosystem. I was living in New York and then Israel, and moved back to the US around 2017. Went to business school and pursued a couple more sort of ambitious directly crypto things there, outside of venture capital, including helping launch a company called Curve, which was in the crypto wallet infrastructure space. As I was working on that company and in business school, Coinbase reached out to me, and because of some of the work I'd done in the crypto space, and sort of the rest was history. It was super exciting to come join Coinbase from that point on and be in the space full time. When I was getting started in crypto, there were not really a lot of places that you could work full time in the industry, and today, obviously, that's very different. Coinbase now has 2,300 employees and is a super vibrant community full of smart people building the future of open financial services. And so it's been an awesome journey, and Coinbase is a super fun place to work and never boring. So hopefully that background is helpful.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. Thanks there again, everybody, for being flexible with the sound. And if anyone has any questions, if you're online, just drop them in the chat too. And then kind of like leading into, I guess, your role at Coinbase, how does coming from like a non-technical background affect you at Coinbase?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, and cognizant that there's probably a lot of students in the audience. I was an English major in undergrad, and I sort of like, scraped and clawed my way through self-teaching a little bit of computer science, but I was never overly technical. And, my thinking on this would be actually, to the extent you have a basic interest at least, but maybe a little bit of understanding of some of the key technical concepts, it can actually get you quite far in crypto. And there's actually, I think, a need for, business talent in crypto, and specifically people who can kind of translate more complex content into something that's simple and easy to understand. We're now in this era of crypto where, the kind of hardcore crypto stuff is starting to collide with traditional financial services. And so I spend most of my time talking to people who are not overly technical, but are trying to understand things like, business rationale, compliance, regulation, and, just making sense of crypto purely from an investment standpoint. And so I would say there's a lot of like very high leverage and important work that can get done in crypto that's not technical. And if you have kind of this skill set or ability to synthesize some of this complex stuff and translate it for the people who are now making decisions that will ultimately lead to a lot more adoption for crypto, you can be a really valuable asset in the industry. So I'm like a huge, bull on and excited about people who are not technical getting into the space. Definitely do your homework and learn as much as you can, but don't let kind of a lack of being, squarely technical hold you back from diving in.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I was also wondering if you could talk a bit about the transition and what that was like at Coinbase, going from a startup to a public company.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I can speak to what it was like for me personally as a transition, but also for the company, right? So I think, coming into Coinbase for me was super exciting. I joined when we were really kind of in a bear market. And so, I should have known because even during the kind of bear market, it was never a dull day at Coinbase. So, we were definitely playing kind of more offense at the time on our institutional practice. We were just really getting the first version of our institutional product suite, which was really about Coinbase custody, off the ground with a core group of kind of just 5 to 10 people on the team. Since that product suite has really expanded massively, and I'm happy to speak more to that later if there's interest. But even during that phase, I think there was a lot of excitement around the crypto native firms, and there was still plenty of work to do. So that set a very high sort of baseline. And then once we got into more of a sort of exciting market in the kind of 2020 timeframe, things started to get like totally crazy. So it was a super interesting experience for me, just being a part of something at that scale, growing that fast, which I hadn't seen in my in my career before. I think I joined Coinbase around employee number 700. We're now I think closing in on 2,400, and obviously the financials are now public, but there's been kind of a quite aggressive pace of growth for a company of this scale. So that was we're at a phase now where certainly we want to grow the business. Most of our challenges are around kind of scaling and ops and keeping pace on a product standpoint, rather than how do we go find more demand. There's a ton of demand out there, and it's about kind of keeping pace and making sure we stay on the bleeding edge, rather than some of the kind of sourcing, marketing, and sales challenges that are more customary for other businesses that I've been close to in my career. But for Coinbase, I think the process of going public was a super important one, not just for our company, but for the crypto market. I think that for people who are in the industry, I think it's been sort of widely understood for a while that there are real business models and there is real demand in crypto. But the reality is that a lot of the kind of stakeholders who control the flow of capital and are decision makers at a lot of the larger financial institutions were not paying attention to crypto, even up until the moment that Coinbase listed. And so the most important thing that I think happened in the market when Coinbase went public is that it was this like highly visible moment where a lot of people who are maybe on the fence could suddenly say like, oh, wow, there's actually a real business model here and a company that has a large global footprint. And so that made a lot of people, I think, kind of wake up. And we definitely did see, a lot of inbound activity from kind of institutional investors and other, larger firms who had previously maybe been a little bit more reticent to move on crypto. In terms of kind of, ops and governance and structure around the company, I think going public is a phenomenal forcing function to kind of get your house cleaned up. And so Coinbase, for most of our history, has been in this state of, various stages of very high growth. And so you're constantly having all these kind of prioritization challenges, and you focus here, but maybe you wait to focus here until you can find resourcing for it. When you're going public, you need to have a lot of these kind of ops and financial and governance things in really tight order. And that was a nice kind of forcing function for us to focus on a lot of those areas. So we did a lot of exec hiring, a lot of work in kind of beefing up our finance team, thinking about our regulatory posture, really doubling down on our security and things like this that would really give us kind of the hygiene that's required to go public. And I think we had to go maybe especially overboard on this, just given all the scrutiny around crypto and knowing that we would be the first major player in this space to be public. We wanted to really get it right. And I think set a good precedent and say to everyone, hey, crypto is grown up, and Coinbase is the firm to prove that. So phenomenal and educational experience My heart was like racing on the listing day, as I'm sure many other people were as well. But it was a really fun process to be a part of, and definitely a proud moment for the company.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then congrats again on just kind of being first to market there, and also first to be listed on the exchange. Kind of transitioning to like facing like retail investors every day. What are the challenges of facing retail investors, and how do you like overcome?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say first I caveat this by saying that I represent our institutional practice, so we have an arm's length relationship by design with our retail business. They're definitely complementary, but distinct in terms of kind of personnel, leadership, strategy, and product. So just like at a firm like J.P. Morgan, you have this large retail banking business, but also prime brokerage and investment banking and things like this on the institutional side. Coinbase is shaping up to have that kind of similar bifurcation of product and personnel responsibilities. But I'll say that just from obviously I do have an opinion here, and we are one company. I think that what the retail team is doing is super important for the long-term growth of crypto, which is their stated mission is really to be the easiest place to get started in crypto and ultimately power your primary financial account for all things crypto. And really that mission of being the easiest place to get started and get comfortable and feel kind of trust when you're entering crypto is critical, because ultimately our goal is we want the crypto economy to be 1 billion plus people, right? And we want to accelerate the path to that. And so having really easy and trusted tools for retail users is key to that mission. I think we're as of Q2 we reported 68 million users. So we're not quite at that billion mark, but we're making good headway towards it. I think the challenges we face are probably quite obvious. There's not there's no kind of magic to this. I think that building any service for tens of millions, if not hundreds and ultimately billions of users, is an incredible challenge. I mean, people are dealing with for one, a fairly complex new technology, and our job is to simplify that. But there's a lot of basic educational hurdles around understanding, okay, how does this stuff even work? And things that we maybe take for granted as folks who are more educated are maybe not obvious to the kind of marginal new user coming at this for the first time. So there's a big educational challenge there. There's a lot of kind of trust challenges. We provide a really robust kind of security toolkit and a lot of disclaimers around some of the realities of crypto and the irreversibility of transactions, but helping users with a toolkit to kind of keep those assets safe and help them understand some of the issues like, hey, don't send Bitcoin to an ETH address. These are also really important things. And I would say, another obvious one that we're constantly investing more and more in is just like, how do you scale kind of product quality and support and services to to tens of millions of people. The reality is it's really difficult to do that at scale. So we're continuing to add kind of new features and types of support. We just launched phone support for the first time for a kind of subset of our users for whom that support is going to be really important. And I think we'll continue to roll out more and more as we scale. So there's no shortage of challenges on the retail side of the business, but those are kind of a few that are top of mind. And we know you all are an engaged user base. Hopefully there's a lot of Coinbase users in the audience. To the extent you have, ideas, questions, concerns, feedback, please pass it along. We always love hearing from our users, and we'll make sure that gets routed to the right product leaders.
Cool. Thanks. Also, I was wondering if you can talk a bit about like what the process is when Coinbase decides which coins are which coins can be listed on the exchange.
Sure. So I'll start with a big disclaimer, which is that we are a large regulated company now, and so when we make asset listing decisions, it tends to have an impact actually on the performance of those assets. So there's a lot that we can't share. So I'm going to give you a very kind of sanitized answer. But the second thing I'll say is that there's a little bit of a distinction between the exchange listing for trading and then custodial support, which is a little bit less sensitive, given that it's really just about holding assets for our institutional clients. But some of the kind of inputs that inform that listing process that I can speak to are first, like, what is the kind of reputation and trust associated with the protocol. So we have a kind of do no harm view, and we're in a unique position to be able to evaluate these protocols at a technical and security level. So each one of these asset issuers who wants to get listed on our platform has to kind of prove to us through our own independent due diligence process that the protocol itself is stable. And so this is really important to us. We don't want to facilitate kind of activity for our users on a network that potentially might be unstable. So that's a really important factor. Another obvious one is like, is there demand for this asset? We want to meet our users' needs. So that's a factor as well. Another critical one is what's the kind of regulatory profile of the asset? We're in the business of listing, as many assets as we can, but we certainly don't want to list things that we think might be, classified as securities or have a sort of particular regulatory classification that may not be right for, how our platform works. And so we do a regulatory evaluation as well. So these are kind of a couple of the key inputs. I will say that the North Star for the listing process is that we view ourselves, particularly on the exchange side, as a sort of agnostic and open infrastructure. And our goal is, to the extent that it is safe and legal, to list as many of these assets as possible. We want to be the place you can go to do anything in crypto. And we're racing to add more and more of these assets all the time.
Thank you. And then kind of just like going on, I know you guys just released your new NFT marketplace, or at least the wait list. So we definitely had a lot of interest from students that signed up that just want to learn more. Is there anything that you can share that hasn't already been shared?
Yeah, sure. I'll speak to it at a high level. Again, some of the stuff here is still under wraps, but I can speak to probably what's happening in the NFT market broadly and kind of why we are participating. First of all, I think we're very excited about leaning into kind of the frontier of crypto. Coinbase views itself as a very kind of crypto forward company. We've been really committed to supporting things like the newest DeFi assets, the ability to do kind of governance, and voting and things like this on chain natively from our products. We were early movers on kind of supporting staking. And so when something new comes along in crypto that we feel is like native, kind of a crypto native unlock, we're really keen to be able to support it. That's core to our mission and to the DNA of our company. With NFTs, I think you have this amazing new market opportunity where, I think about the kind of evolution of crypto as these kind of concentric circles that continue to expand. So you have like, Bitcoin, maybe in the earliest phase, you could say crypto was about really kind of send, receive, and store of value in a new decentralized primitive, i.e. the Bitcoin blockchain. Then kind of fast forward to Ethereum and Solana and some of these smart contracting platforms, and you're taking that same decentralized blockchain primitive, but actually applying it to all financial services through more programming flexibility with kind of Solidity and some of these other programming language. So now you've gone from stored value and send receive to actually all types of financial services, including on-chain credit markets, decentralized trading, insurance, and that just radically expands the market further. Now it feels like we're sort of in the early innings of yet a third phase of the market, which is really expanding crypto into the media, gaming, social media markets with of course NFTs. And this is about sort of digitizing, I think, art, media, and property in ways that were not possible before. And so we view that as a super exciting new market opportunity. These are enormous markets. And just as a lot of our behavior in other markets has gone digital, we think it's quite reasonable to anticipate that a huge portion, if not the majority, of the kind of art, media, and gaming markets could be tokenized and on-chain at some point in the future. So we want to be there. We want to facilitate that, that getting to that end state, and be the easiest place to do so, and take advantage of the trust we've built already with our users. So that's really the kind of genesis for this NFT platform. I can't speak much further to the product. I'd say that's under wraps, and stay tuned and look to the blog and to Sanjin's team for more on that. But we're super excited to get into this space. We're going to welcome your feedback once the product is live, and the goal is going to be to be the easiest place to do everything that you'd want to do with your NFTs.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. I was also wondering if you can talk a bit about like where you see Coinbase in the next 5 to 10 years, and also if you think the volatility of the coins could affect Coinbase in the future.
Sure. Where I see Coinbase in the next 5 to 10 years, I think to state the obvious, our expectation is that and hope is that crypto will be adopted more and more widely around the world. So we want to see that billion users in crypto. I think we're probably at as a market, I think we're somewhere around the few hundred million mark today. So it's quite conceivable that the market in total could hit that kind of billion user mark in the next few years. And then we want to be able to facilitate that growth. So there's kind of two ways that I think we'll do that. And I have maybe a little bit of a differentiated perspective from our institutional business as well, which I can speak to. So the obvious way that we'll support that growth is by continuing to provide the best and easiest tools for retail investors who want to access the markets directly through the Coinbase.com retail app or through our non-custodial app, which is the Coinbase wallet. So that's one way we're going to continue to invest in that. Another that we're very focused on from the institutional side is we want to power other interesting kind of platforms and services that are not first-party Coinbase apps, but provide these firms with our infrastructure so they can get to market faster. So we're very kind of cognizant of the reality that there's some other great technologies and platforms out there that already have massive distribution, right? So you can think of these like kind of fintechs or banking apps, broker dealers, social media platforms, and these players have all kind of woken up in the past few years and recognized, okay, I probably need to be in the crypto market, but most of them lack the kind of expertise or technical know-how, or possibly even the developers to be able to do that efficiently. And so we have this great opportunity to say, hey, look, we've built it ourselves. We power our own experiences on our first-party applications with this infrastructure. Here, we're going to let you build on it as well. And so I'm primarily focusing my time on this effort today in what we're calling our platform or our introducing broker business. And that is basically externalizing our infrastructure for trading, custody, staking, lending, data analytics, compliance tools as a service in a kind of vertical crypto cloud for these third parties to build on. So I think you could see a world where hopefully Coinbase Retail owns a huge part of the market and is powering a lot of user growth through those first-party apps, but also Coinbase will play a part in the back end through these other platforms as they get into the crypto market as well. And those I think are the two vectors through which we're thinking about growing the company and are super excited about. From a product standpoint, we have to be kind of careful again. Now we're a public company, so there's not a ton I can say there. But I think that the kind of work we're doing with NFTs and enabling some of this bleeding edge, DeFi types of use cases are emblematic of what you're going to see. So we're going to continue to kind of push the envelope and expand horizontally as new capabilities for crypto come into the market. We want to be there and be the kind of go-to trusted player, driving users' ability to participate in those new activities.
That's awesome. I love how much future growth there is and just like tons of diverse different areas. Kind of switching the pace from Coinbase Exchange to Coinbase Ventures. What's like personally interesting to me is how some of these projects like don't even have like they're all like Discord usernames or like just like face names. Do you find in the industry that I don't think Coinbase is, but other companies are investing in just like these people with fake like game names, or like how is like investing in different startups evolved?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think we're super active on ventures. I think we're approaching our 200th investment since I've been at the firm. So it's really exciting to see the pace of kind of deal flow, and there's just incredible founders coming into crypto from other pockets of leading technology firms, and there's no shortage of interesting stuff to invest in. There are some like basic laws of physics in investing. No matter how kind of cool and frontier crypto is, I think we are still believers in we want to support that frontier, but we're believers in some basic due diligence principles, and we want to understand who we're investing in. So we have yet to write a check to an anonymous founder without understanding their identity. I think that presents some kind of legal and due diligence and compliance issues. I wouldn't rule it out completely, but it's not something we've done yet. We're certainly funding businesses that are spawning communities and user growth and adoption of their assets in all kinds of creative ways. So I think we'll continue to have exposure to these kinds of things indirectly, but from a pure investment standpoint, our North Star has really been, we want to back the smartest founders at the earliest stage possible who are attacking interesting opportunities in crypto, and they continue to surprise us. So I would say, like, another item maybe I'll leave you with for how we kind of think about investing in ventures. We don't really take a really hard thematic stance on, okay, we should be investing this way because we expect XYZ thing to happen. I think we have learned that humility is kind of the best approach. Crypto has a way of moving incredibly fast and challenging a lot of your assumptions. And so we tend to be like more kind of open mind than prepared mind investors, and see what the smartest founders are thinking and try to really support them and stick with them throughout their whole journey.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That helps clear a lot of things up.
Yeah, Brian, I was also wondering if you can talk a bit about what staking is, because I know you guys introduced it, and I signed up for staking and I don't fully understand. I think a lot of people also just kind of click the button without really a full understanding of what it is. So I wonder if you can just talk a bit more about what that means.
Yeah, no problem. I'll give you my sort of non-technical 10,000-foot view, which I think will be a good starting point. And then I'd also encourage folks to kind of dig through our educational resources. We have some great things on the Coinbase Learning. I'm trying to remember what this retail platform's brand is called. But if you look at if you kind of search around for like the Coinbase Learning Hub, you should see some great educational content on our retail site that goes deeper here. But the way to think about staking is, I think we should start with what's happening at the protocol level. So I think as many of you probably know, Bitcoin sort of network state is enforced by miners who are basically competing with computational power to participate in validating Bitcoin transactions on chain, and thereby, converging on a single source of truth for what should be represented on that blockchain. And the mechanism for that is again kind of computational power, where these Bitcoin proof of work miners are solving arbitrary math problems and then being rewarded for solving them as a kind of proof that they put the work in to validate a transaction. And so that is that's sort of how the Bitcoin blockchain works, and we call that proof of work because the mechanism for showing that you've done the work to prove the state of the network is based on computational power. So what staking is it's the proof of stake networks like Ethereum. It's their equivalent of proof of work and that mining based consensus mechanism. So instead of kind of arbitrary computational power on these proof of stake chains, you have a kind of capital delegation model where you have actors on the network called validators who are responsible for validating the state of the network. But rather than using this sort of arbitrary computational power primitive, it's instead about them being able to aggregate delegated capital from other participants in the network and saying, okay, we're voting actually on letting this validator decide what the source of truth is, and staking capital rather than computational power to enforce that state. And the validator, in exchange for running this service of validating the network and coordinating that capital, is able to pay out a reward. Just like the Bitcoin network pays out a reward to Bitcoin miners, these validators get rewarded in sort of the proof of stake in inflation reward. And so when you're participating in staking on a platform like Coinbase, we're abstracting away all that complexity for you, and your assets are getting kind of delegated on the back end while still being yours to a specific validator who's performing that function on the network, and then we're providing you with the reward that comes out of that validation process. So that's hopefully I didn't confuse you or get overly technical, but that's a high level sort of way to think about it. I would just say this is a proof of stake networks sort of analog to mining rewards on a proof of work network like Bitcoin.
Thank you. Kind of going back to the educational side of things, I know we have Coinbase Learn for retail investors, but are Coinbase kind of like teaching institutional investors anything? You guys are leading charge.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope it's a big part of our job. So I'd say that, when I first joined more so than now, so the market's just changed radically. I don't think there's, basically all of the large investment firms now have some sort of a view on crypto. So it's now at a point, the asset class is, I think, around 2.5 trillion today in total. That's still small relative to, equities or debt or certainly real estate. But it's big enough that you kind of have to have some sort of a view. So that's good. That doesn't mean everyone's fully there, but it means that they've done at least some kind of, elementary crowd work. When I first joined, we would show up at a lot of these investment firms, and it'd be like kind of like a daycare kind of a situation where, some of the smartest people in the world, but they were nowhere on crypto. And so we were doing really basic kind of a lot of Bitcoin 101 tutorials and, analogies to gold and thinking through explaining kind of how a blockchain works. We're doing less of that now. I would say more of our time spent now is on a firm comes to us and says, hey, I have a view about crypto. I have an interest in accessing the market or kind of building a crypto product of my own using your infrastructure. And then it's more about how can you help me operationalize that view? And so that's a super interesting, and distinct conversation from the kind of crypto 101. And it's a ton of fun that we're kind of at that state of the market now. But I would say that, to the extent for those of you who are thinking about working at, crypto PB like Coinbase Institutional or going out there and being, in the kind of crypto service provider world, your ability to kind of make sense of what's happening in the market and the various products and how to solve these problems for the kind of next wave of adopters, be they kind of institutional or retail, is going to be is like the name of the game. This is a super important and I think in demand skill set, and you can really aid the growth of the industry by digging into some of these issues and helping problem solve with these next waves of adopters for crypto.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's kind of interesting to see how the educational gap has kind of changed at different levels, and now we're finally starting to see more interactions within the space, which is great. Can you talk about like Coinbase's main competition, whether it's banks starting to make intersection or other exchanges, and kind of speak more to that?
Sure. Yeah, I think I'll say, we welcome competition. There's, been phenomenal growth in the market overall, and that brings out a lot of interesting new players. And so we think of our competition broadly, I'll start by saying, we're not an overly competition focused firm. I think we have this view that, the addressable market for crypto is enormous. We think it's ultimately probably the majority of all the financial services, which is, the largest market in the world. And then also now, evidently, kind of gaming, media, art, social media, e-commerce as well. So there's not this kind of like turf war issue that we might have. You might see as sort of a vertical software company where it's okay. We have $1 billion TAM. There's going to be a couple companies here worth a few $100 million. We think this is a massively open market. So and then given how fast the market moves, and coupled with the overall size, it really benefits you to be kind of focused on being the best version of you rather than overly kind of competition focused. But recognizing that you probably want a bit more than that, I will give you a more kind of straight answer about kind of our competitors. I think we think about them broadly in two buckets. So we have what I would call kind of crypto native competition. And these are firms that kind of started in the crypto world and are more generally kind of startups. And they're typically kind of faster moving, leaner, smaller companies that are pretty technical, but are not necessarily like traditional finance oriented. So those are really interesting competitors. Generally, they challenge us on kind of product speed on the crypto native side. So that's the thing that we're always trying to stay ahead of on that dimension. But generally, they have a kind of maybe weaker understanding of the traditional finance markets and some of these larger institutional players who are now very much a key part of the overall market. And so that's where we can kind of stand out. We want to be the best of both worlds and maintain that kind of crypto native bleeding edge capability while also understanding that kind of traditional market DNA. And so, Coinbase's sort of employee base reflects that duality. We have awesome people who are crypto native, incredible kind of engineering depth, and then great leaders from, who hail from executive roles in various kind of Wall Street firms. On the other side is obviously those traditional finance firms. So we are seeing, large banks, custodians, broker dealers, and fintechs start to come into the market. And that's super exciting because they have, massive distribution and existing client relationships. What they don't have, again, is kind of the wherewithal and technology, and in some cases, just have like red tape that inhibits them from being able to do crypto really well or at least quickly. And that's where we can make a big difference with those firms. I think there's a little bit of a narrative that we're, I think, starting to break the ice on, but haven't fully yet, which is, that actually these firms are more our kind of partners than they are our competition. So while some of them may own the kind of last mile to their users, behind the scenes, Coinbase is actually, powering many of them through our infrastructure, through, Coinbase Custody, our Prime platform, staking services through Coinbase Cloud, data analytics, and things like this. So those are kind of the two buckets of our how we think about who our primary competitors are. But we feel, really excited about our market positioning and, the overall opportunity in the market.
Thanks, Brian. I think that there's like a lot of students here that are interested in the crypto space and are looking to work in the crypto space. I was wondering if you have any advice for those people who are looking to work in the crypto space or even have a crypto startup or investment startup, and any resources that you've used in the past to help you learn more about this.
Totally. So my first piece of advice would be just do it. Don't think about it. I think one of the things that people get hung up on is, oh my God, like what's my timing? Am I joining at the right time? And I have this view that, crypto is one of these kind of monster multi-decade phenomena that is not going away. And so it's easy to kind of get fixated on where we are in the latest kind of price cycles or, what's hypey or what's not. And I would say that from a career standpoint, especially if you're a student and just getting going, like your best sort of headspace to be in is like zoom out and take the long view. Whether you join, now or in a bear market, it doesn't really matter. There's like ample opportunity, and crypto's not going away. So definitely do it and don't worry about your timing. I would say that, there's just now incredible opportunity everywhere. Like when I was, first getting into the space, there were only a couple firms that were even, possible to work at. Again, now Coinbase, we're hiring dozens of people, maybe more than that, every week at this point. And there's a lot of other large firms as well. I would say definitely work at a crypto native firm if you can. So I think there's a lot of, I have a little bit of a bias here, but when I talked about those two buckets of kind of, the traditional firms moving into crypto versus the crypto native firms that are kind of scaling, I think that if you're really interested in the crypto part and you want to move fast, you're best served early in your career being at a crypto native firm, because you'll have to spend less time kind of convincing people that your thing matters, and everyone will be kind of all in. So Coinbase is lucky to have this. We never debate like, oh, should we do this? It's like, yeah, this is all we do. And so, thick or thin, we're doing crypto. So that would be my other piece of advice. And then I would say just focus on working on great teams with people who are long-term focused. That you do get these kind of, occasionally when there's a market kind of frenzy or excitement, you do get a lot of kind of noise and start to see things that are maybe not as high quality kind of creep into the industry. And I would say like really do your homework and be careful. Try to work with people who have, a good reputation, high integrity, and are really committed to building something for the long term, rather than sort of looking for kind of a quick flip. And if you're smart about it and ask around, it's a super supportive community. People are willing to help you and answer questions. Just do your homework and try to find a team like that. But definitely work in crypto. It's not the risk that I think some people think it is. It's a ton of fun. There's ample opportunity, and you'll learn a lot. So strong thumbs up for any of you who are thinking about it.
Thanks for sharing. Does anyone have any questions in the room? I know. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So first, I would like to say thank you for coming to our talk. But my question right now is, I know we kind of agree that the traditional banking system and the people are kind of very separate. I don't feel like they can be done. So what do you think is the first way to pursue that crypto kind of get to a traditional banking system? Is there any like the
Could you relay the question, Bennett? It's a little small, soft, having trouble hearing.
Well, I can unplug it. Yeah, so like what's the correlation between bringing crypto more into the real world? Or like how do you see like the future of crypto playing out to whether it's institutions and also retailers? Is that something along?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of more banking focused. Sorry.
How do you see it playing out from a banking focus with adoption?
Right.
Yeah, I think like our view is that, all banking services are going to need to include crypto capability. And so we're well on the way to that happening. So if you kind of sift through some of the news, and you'll see that there's a lot of groundwork happening right now for the banks to get activated in crypto. We're working with many of them, and we can't disclose all of those relationships yet. But I think the way that this is going to play out is initially you have this separation of crypto and traditional fin services. We're now entering the phase of kind of hybridity, where you're going to have banks that can do both, and a lot of those services are going to be powered by firms like Coinbase that are kind of crypto native on the back end. But ultimately, we hope we get to a place where actually the kind of performant realities of crypto and superior product capabilities mean that crypto is actually your default, right? So maybe the right analogy here is kind of like the hybrid, and then now fully electric car situation, right? So you have these kind of, for those of you who remember in the kind of early 2000s and even late 1990s, you had these like this phase of these kind of dinky hybrid cars that could barely go on the highway and max out at 60 miles an hour. So you went from kind of full gas to that hybrid phase to now you've got a Tesla, right? And I think we're in a similar kind of arc of how crypto gets adopted and then ultimately subsumes a lot of what we currently use in the banking world. And we're still very early in that journey, just entering, I think, the middle phase.
Thank you. We have a question from David in the chat. What's the best way to get involved at Coinbase? Are there any summer internship programs or associate programs for graduate students? And what types of skills are you looking for?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, we're hiring across the board. I think we the bar is quite high, and we want to hire great people. I'm sure that's many of you. So I would say, get in touch. Bennett, maybe I can share some contact info with you as follow-up here. And we definitely invite you to send along, a short note and a resume, and we'd be happy to take a look. I don't think, we have, we're still kind of developing our muscle for hiring interns and people who are kind of right out of school, but it's never a hard no. Some of the most impressive people are always, like fresh out of school. I've been in that situation and like knocking on the door. And so we want to be open-minded and figure out how to make it work. So I think, I think generally we've hired probably more sort of newer folks right out of school on the technical side than on the business side. So that's just one sort of signal I would share, although that could always change. So the answer is like we're hiring across the board from technical to products to marketing, sales, business, corp dev roles. And maybe you and I can circle up and provide a channel for folks to share their information after the session.
Yeah, that sounds great. If you guys aren't following the blockchain Instagram, it's just at NEU Blockchain. And I'll also share like a Medium with all that information and the best ways to get in touch for careers and other things at Coinbase. So thank you for sharing that. What are your favorite like podcasts or things that's weekly updates, ways to stay involved and just like get more immersed in the space? I know Coinbase does a little newsletter every week.
Totally. Yeah. It's so hard. It's funny. When I first started investing in crypto, I used to, when I was in my old venture fund, every time there was an article that was written about crypto, I would print it out and put it on my desk and show my partners at my investment firm. And it's like in a week, I might have one article to print. And now it's like a flood. It's impossible to keep up. So there's no shortage of good content. I highly recommend, and I'm going to butcher the name, but if you search around, you'll find it. I highly recommend the Andreessen Horowitz, which is a large venture capital firm that's one of our early investors and has a good, dedicated crypto fund now. They've put out a kind of repository, which we reference a lot to our clients. So if you search for like Andreessen Horowitz Crypto Canon, I believe it's called, there's a bunch of great resources in there and podcasts. That'd be a great starting point for folks who are trying to get up to speed. I know some of the other popular ones. I'll plug a few that I've listened to over the years. I think the On the Brink podcast by the Castle Island team is excellent. They're good friends of mine. And Laura Shin has done a few great podcasts as well. I think Unchained is one of hers. And I think she has another one as well. But I would check out those as a starting point. And certainly have a look at the Andreessen library. There you go. It looks like someone put it in the chat. That's perfect. Thanks, David.
Yeah, that sounds good. We're also good friends with Castle Island people. Matt's
Okay.
coming a few times, so
Yeah, they're Boston folks. That's right.
yeah. So we're looking forward to bringing them in the future too.
Awesome.
Yeah. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we wrap up? Go ahead, Yusuf. Oh, if you want to speak up, I can.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's more like related to the investing side of things. You're trying to source a new investment or deal. Usually, there are traditional metrics in finance to assess the investment. Are there any new metrics that you use?
What was the question, Bennett?
Are there any unique new crypto methods or like analytics that you use to invest that might be atypical to normal investing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there's awesome data analytics companies out there for kind of monitoring what's happening, both market and on-chain analytics. I'll share a few that we've invested in through our venture arm, and one that we've acquired that we use. I would say these are more focused on liquid assets rather than venture investments. Most of the kind of venture deal flow is very much, like sort of hand to hand and relationship based, and it's harder to find kind of good signal there in tools. But with respect to like liquid tools and what's happening in the markets, we're investors in and love products like Dune Analytics for DeFi, Coin Metrics, which is a spin out from Nick Carter at Castle Island. Glassnode is a great one. And then we, of course, Skew Analytics is one we bought. That's more of a kind of institutional tool. Our prime users now have access to that. A bunch of our hedge funds were using it. If you're looking for sort of more basic like asset tracking type of stuff that's publicly available, I know CoinGecko is a great app that a lot of our users rely on. And then, of course, the Coinbase retail app has great data as well. So hopefully those are a few answers that are helpful for folks.
Yeah, thank you. We also have Coin Metrics coming in later this semester. Tim Rice, the CEO,
Awesome.
in a few weeks. So we're definitely excited for that. Is there any last words of wisdom that you have for everybody here?
Look, I would just reiterate, take the long view and stay engaged. I think it's easy to go in and out of crypto and ignore things when asset prices get maybe volatile in a negative way. When I was graduating from business school, just as a point of reference, I think so there were 900 students in my class. Only 3 of us went into crypto. And at the beginning of my 2 years in business school, I was one of the crypto nerds who was giving talks and stuff and had been in the market for a while. Like everyone was day trading. So we had a bunch of hedge fund folks and people who were excited about what was happening in the market. And then when it came time for recruiting and things kind of slowed down in the market, almost nobody went into the space. I think the 3 of us who did certainly don't regret it. And so what I would say is kind of take the long view, really dive in and scratch the edge with your curiosity, and don't be deterred by kind of the market ebbing and flowing. The long view is the one that's going to, I think, be the right one. And patience, historically has been rewarded in crypto. And then beyond that, please stay in touch. Again, Bennett and team here can help facilitate a kind of good way to reach out and let us know if you have any questions or if we can help you at Coinbase.
Thank you again, Brian, for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. And thanks for the great questions.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Bye, everyone.